Hello, and welcome to episode 14 of Creative Collaboration Conversations with me and Veronica. Or actually, it's Veronica and Jillian, and I'm Jillian.
And I'm Veronica, and thank you for coming back. And in today's episode, because we are heading towards the end of the year, we were thinking, how about we are looking at the predictions, the predictions in terms of marketing that were made at the beginning of the year versus the reality, and could be a fun one. Like we're gonna just we did a research and we grabbed a couple of predictions from companies like Deloitte or Hubspot and a couple of others, and now we're just gonna have fun with it.
Yes. What's more fun than talking about trends and predictions and reality than, what's more fun than that? So, I mean, we really know how to have a good time.
It would be a good time, but I think it's very important because a lot of people at the beginning of the year, myself included, like, let's be honest here, we put a lot of weight into, these big names, big companies, they are doing research and for sure they know what they're talking about. But did anyone actually sit down and looked at, okay, they're predicting this, but did it actually happen? What was the reality? What do we need to look? How much weight and value do we need to place in those? And I'm not saying they're doing a bad thing. These are companies I admire and I like, and we definitely going to look at them. But let's be a little bit realistic, because this is what a business owner should do, right? What is it? Is it actually worth it spending time, allocating time on this? And what's the percentage of them being a reality? Of course, will not be 100%, because that is impossible. But also, how much of my resources should I allocate into their prediction versus my intuition, my predictions, and my analysis,
and my data, and my own data? What's actually working?
Exactly. But before that, shall we share with our listeners what we were discussing before the start of this episode?
Yes, go ahead, pull back the curtain, Veronica.
Maybe. Okay, so I don't know if we made this public, but one of our goals, like Jillian's and mine, is to reach 100, a threshold of 100 listeners to our podcast. And let's be honest, we always record like no one is listening, so probably this way we are just having fun.
Yeah.
And we are more authentic, I believe. But we are 4 people short of reaching our threshold.
Come on, we need 4 more downloads. But if you're listening now, that means if you're listening now, that means we are now over 4. We're over the 100, because by the time this one is live, if they're listening, unless we have no more listeners until this, and only one more person, but chances are, by the time this one goes live and somebody's listening, we'll be over 100. So you're contributing to us.
Right. Thank you, and do share it. Looking at the data that we kept on saying, we do have quite a consistent growth. So thank you everyone for listening. We do
but
appreciate
I will say the US market is showing up big time, because I think it's like 44% the US.
Oh my God. Ooh.
I know, imagine that. I know. Right?
So that reminds me of our previous episode about your business, the hot seat, and also discussing US market versus European market.
I know.
We should just switch focus.
I know. Although it's like the US is like probably the same percentage if you add up all the European countries.
Yes, and US, it's a continent.
Yeah, exactly.
Treat it like Europe.
Right, no kidding. That's true. It kind of is. It kind of should be, actually, but in any case, so
it actually
all
is.
right. So let's. How do you want to approach today? Do you want to start off with it?
Play it by ear. Let's just take. I know. So to our listeners, Jillian is amazing. She actually took from different lists the main points.
So this is me. I'm the the anal retentive organized one. This is me, like, to a fault. It's sometimes good in business, but I will say in marriage it's a little tricky. It's like It's like, do we have to organize the spices by alphabetical order? It's like, no, I don't do that. I'm just kidding.
Jillian, come to my house. I need to organize my kitchen.
It's like, I just like when things are organized. It's so much more efficient that way. And she said to me the other day, she said, I'm sleeping with the enemy. So I don't know if you know that old Julia. Yeah. I'm like, no, it's not. I'm not that way. But anyway, okay. Business. Here we go. So the way, just kind of trying to create a very quick punch list to consolidate the Deloitte predictions for 2023 trends. So the first one was looking to expand markets and provide personalization. Number 2 is internal sustainability efforts. Number 3 was around embracing creativity and all that entails, the willingness to take risks, etc. And 4 was about emerging tech. So just emerging tech. So those are the 4 from Deloitte. So
shall we
I have a few thoughts on those, but
me too.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, you start.
Shall we take those ones, and let's just we take one and we exchange ideas and we move.
Perfect. Yeah.
So listeners, we don't really prepare the episodes before we have an idea about the topic, and then we just play. If you're wondering how this goes, it's what you hear is actually what is really happening. So the first one was extended markets and provide personalization. So what are your thoughts on that?
So I think personalization is key. And I feel like the technology is there for us to do that. But I feel like not overplaying technology so that we lose sight of the person and the personalization. So I think that there are a lot of tools that do that. But honestly, I think from what I have seen in the small to medium size business world, so not the Deloitte level, I don't see this really as being fully realized yet. I don't. I think
agree
that
with
there's still a lot of ways to go with that, personalization.
I think there's a difference between personalization and human approach. And I think we should go more towards the human approach. And, this is very dear to my heart and the way I run my business. Definitely there are a ton of tools that you can use to have it personalized. I feel we are going a little bit too much towards that, and it's overwhelming because everything is personalized, but it's personalized more in terms of niched, if that makes sense. So you see clearly it's a sales funnel or marketing funnel that you are guided through, but not really taking into account you as a human being. So it becomes, for me personally, a little bit fake. And it's not how I understand personalization. And I think there's a difference between personalization and a human touch, like being taken care of and supported. Does that make sense? I don't know.
And it's funny, no, of course, I think so. But as you're describing, it makes me kind of laugh. So I don't know if this is what you're referring to or not, but with the idea of like personalization. So yes, we all now know that there are tools that you can do merge fields like hello, first name. We all know about the first name, right? We all know about that. So you could say, okay, we're personalizing. I don't think that really does it because that's so kind of fake. We all know what that is. It's fake. It's not really personalized. So I think that's one thing. But I'm going to go here for a minute and see if I don't know if you think it's going to be connected, but to me, the opportunity that I see in this that's been I feel like underappreciated or underutilized in terms of the kind of personalization is specifically, you're talking about marketing funnels and all of that. In my experience, a lot of small, medium-sized companies don't necessarily think of it in those terms. And in some ways, I think that's a disservice, but in others, there's an opportunity in that to not think of people as a funnel, but instead, and here I'm finally now getting to my suggestion idea, is to look at the composition of your kind of stakeholders, right? So let's focus on the one that is most typical, like the one that companies focus on, which is customers, right? So even within customers, you have previous customers, right? You have your current customers and you have your prospective customers. So if you were to isolate one of those groups, let's just say your past customers, right? And then to focus on that group and look at them and think about what service, what information is useful to them, and really looking at them and focusing on them and how you can add value to them. So whatever your service or product is that you sold, to think through, okay, 3 months later or 6 months later or 5 years later, like all of those points, what are the things that they will be thinking about or will be looking for or should be thinking about or should be looking for, and to help bring those to light for them. So to create content for specific groups of people based on where they're at in the life cycle of your product or service that you have sold to them.
I'm so happy you said that, because for me, that's personalization.
Yeah.
But it goes a step further. Actually, what we do is some clients, you reach out to each of the client, depending on your database, of course, and you make it personal and you touch upon something that you did for them and you know they need the next step. So it's built on what you said, but a step further, or you send them personalized letters, or you show them you really thought about them, not just they are part of an emailing list, for example.
Yeah, all day long. The way I talk about that, because I think that's huge, and that to me is the benefit when you approach your process and workflow from an efficiency standpoint, and making sure that you don't have people. So for example, I had one client that for years was having their office staff like stuff envelopes and send cards out to people, like appointment cards. And I'm like, that's a colossal waste of resources. These people's skill set is far above stuffing envelopes. So why don't we not do that? And why don't we find another way to address that need, and reallocate those resources to doing something that's the highest and best use for those people, and to do the thing that no technology or anything else can substitute for, which is the personal touch. But having it in a strategic time frame and schedule and all of that.
And well thought. Don't do it just because you have to do it. Like what I like to do with my new clients, actually to send a small, like the snail mail, saying
I love snail mail.
So a personal touch is always welcome, but it does need to make sense and needs to be, in my opinion, authentic. And here, like, really think not the authenticity that everyone talks now, but it needs to be a real thought behind it, not just because doing it because everyone does it. And I feel
it's like, wait, hold on, I have to interrupt. What do you think about, like, I don't know, so do you well, just use a hypothetical, I won't put you on the spot. What do you think about companies that have a service plugged in that automatically spits out a birthday card to somebody when it's their birthday, like, and it's just do you have that? Have you gotten those, like a birthday card in the mail from a company that says, oh, it's your birthday? Sometimes it'll be like 10% off, or just like,
you have that usually from the big e-commerce company, and I do receive them. It depends. It depends on the services that you have. So if you are selling clothes, for example, that's a nice reminder, or cosmetics or whatever, something like that, could be a nice way to get them back. I think you could do it better, and everybody does it at this point. You kind of.
That's why I was asking, do you think it's a personalization, or do you feel like it's like, if you get a birthday card from a company, do you feel like, oh, thank you? Like, to me, what I feel like is, oh, you just wasted this paper. Like, am I like a stick in the mud, or it's like, because I don't know if they really thought of it.
They don't really think about it, and this is why I'm saying depends a little bit on the services. For us, that we are B2B, and the number of clients that we have, it's way smaller. When you receive that, you're like, oh, they actually know about this, so it will be much more appreciated. And I don't need a discount. It will be like, I really thought about you, and here is like the harmonica story that you have, for example. That I will appreciate. Honestly, if I need a new cream and I get a 10% discount, I will be happy. I will not
Yeah,
lie.
fair.
But I'm not
Yeah,
gonna feel, I'm not gonna feel, oh, they thought
they
about me. I'm
care
not
about
gonna
me.
feel,
Yeah,
no, I'm not gonna
yeah.
feel. I know it's just a sales tool. Um,
Hmm.
so it kind of depends from whom, which company it
Yeah.
comes.
Okay. So what about any of the other ones? You want to take a swing at 2, 3, or 4?
Let's go. So internal sustainability efforts is the second one. Oh, I'm a little bit torn here because you have the SEGs that is big now, and everybody, like the big corporates, they actually hire huge corporates, like huge consultancy companies to come and help them, and everyone forgets about the small ones. And I'm part of different groups of small
Yep.
entrepreneurial groups, and it is a hot topic. And I think it's a very important one, and I think it should be taken seriously. But it's a difference between being, oh, we just need to do it and let's just come up with something that
Yeah.
we don't really believe in. And I think that's 99% of what is happening. And then you have the 1% that actually do it because it's in line with their values and what they want to do and their mission.
So you're telling me that's my market opportunity is 1%?
You need to
Great.
grow it. I think it's also actually 1% from the entire world. It's not that
It's not
bad.
too bad. Yeah, right.
And it's here because you have the legislation that obliges you basically to
Yeah.
take it into account.
Yep.
So it's like the
Yep.
corporate, the CSR, how CSR
Mm.
was, I don't know,
Yep.
20 years ago, something like that.
Yeah.
This is the
Yep.
new CSR basically, but with a different
Right.
name, slightly different approach. Um,
Yep.
that doesn't mean it can't do good and different important issues can't be addressed and something good can't come out of it. But people
Yep.
need education. They don't really
Yep.
understand what it stands for.
Yep.
They don't understand how
Yep.
to use it. And I think
Yep.
everyone is acting out of fear at this point instead of acting
Yep.
from, let's actually create something. So once that you're switching this mentality, then your market is growing. But of course,
Yep.
when you had the GDPR, right, and you had you
Yep.
need to have the policies listed, the term and conditions, and everything. The first thing that people do, they react out of fear. I don't want to be
Yep.
fined. I don't want to be not in line with the legislation or what I need to provide. Right, I need to be, what's the
Hmm.
word I'm looking for? Compliant.
Yep.
So I think now, because it's so new, everyone is acting towards that. It's also how we had the 2030 agenda with the sustainable goals.
Yep. Yep.
I think we moved from that towards ECGs. So is that it's a hype trending topic? Everyone discuss about it, but
Hmm.
I doubt how many do actually understand what it stands for and how should they
Yep.
prepare. And it's
Yep.
actually about the business process internally. How do you integrate that
Yep.
internally? How do
Yep.
you align that with your values and purpose? And I doubt they really understand that.
So the one thing I'll say about this one is share what my perspective is, my suggestion, and what feels to me like an obvious gap in the marketplace, which is for companies that are providing, kind of sustainable related stuff to do a better job of showing mainstream businesses what the opportunity is.
Yeah,
Because I think for a lot of businesses, they associate sustainability efforts with cost. And they don't
that's true.
necessarily have a strong handle on what the opportunities are with it. And so for me, I talk a bit about sustainability as a responsibility of companies, because I believe every business is responsible for their doing their part, right? But I also think it comes with a price tag called opportunity.
Yeah,
But I think it would be amazing if there were more organizations, consultants, folks, blogs, etc. out there that are, routinely showing the opportunities that are available, or the, how adapting sustainable business processes or an ESG framework or whatever it is has actually helped the company to be better, which is to grow or to be more profitable, because that's a whole
Yeah.
different thing. But anyway, so I think that's the
But
opportunity with
I
sustainability.
agree with you, and that actually can mean more profit and a more niched
Yep.
service, and because that's actually what it is. Like, look at your business and the processes and how you run it
Yep.
and the stakeholders, but they don't. I think it's scary, and everyone is working from a fearful position. The mentality
Yeah.
is like, I need to get through one more day, one more quarter, so on and so forward. So instead of actually focusing on creation, they're focusing on the negative, because each action has a positive and a negative, right? And it depends on the perspective that you take and how you are approaching it. So I think it's more of a mentality thing. And but considering also the political and the what is happening now with the wars everywhere, it's
I know.
everyone is anxious and no one is, what will happen? What certainties do I have? So I think that also has an influence on this. And then instead of running your business and you're struggling to keep your clients or get new clients, and some of them are affected by the war or they are not investing because of that, it's a very fine line how to approach it.
Yeah, I agree. So you just mentioned creativity. I don't know. I mean, if we go through each one, and this is going to be like a marathon episode, but
we can't do that.
Do you have anything else you'd like to share in reference to the Deloitte 4, we'll call it?
Creativity, like it's a core value of my business. You do need to be creative, and that makes your business different. If you're not, for me, if you're not creative, you're not curious, and it will be so boring. Then better stay home and sleep, honestly. And being creative, it doesn't mean it requires a lot of effort. Actually, in my perspective, it will simplify your work. And it's about just having a different perspective. Just don't do things like everyone else does them. Just take a step back and see what is actually important to you. And creativity always was important. So I find it actually a little bit sneaky from them and lazy to place their creativity, because this shouldn't be a trend. This should be a core item that should appear all the time.
So we had our episode was on creativity as a business strategy, was episode 4, where we talked quite a bit.
Oh my gosh, I admire you for remembering the number of episodes.
In full disclosure, I did not. I just looked at our sheet quickly to confirm what number it was. So I just had a quick peek to see. So it's episode 4. But the part that I think is relevant, and the part that I focus on the most in terms of creativity, because I approach it a little bit different than you, I think of it as a necessity, especially during times of angst or turbulence, or just what's the word I want to say, when you're
instability.
Instability, for sure. Is to be creative about the way that you do things, because a lot of times there's a more cost-effective way to do something, and it just makes you be more or to try to be more objective in actually looking at your business kind of holistically, to think about what else or other ways that you can do things. So I think there's opportunity that happens. It's similar to an article I wrote in the beginning of COVID, saying like, wow, what an amazing opportunity this is. And I went through 4 different, kind of facets of a company and what the opportunities were and how they could be revisited to make better use of the time that we had. So I think creativity is kind of an obvious one, and it should be just like a standing operating procedure for how we run business. I don't think it is enough, which is probably why it's listed as a trend. But I would say there's great opportunity with that.
I think it's also a cultural thing, because I just I was chatting with, I'm Romanian, for the ones that don't know. And
wait a second, did you say for the listener that doesn't know?
Listeners.
I was like, that's hilarious. So who is this listener? Do we need to meet? Yeah, okay, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
Anyways, the idea is, so I grew up when I was a kid during the communist era, and was the revolution. I was a teenager at that period, so a lot of transition. But all that
Wow.
environment, it did teach us how to be creative because the resources were limited, right? So in that case, you do need to look at things differently and see, my resources are limited. How can I get where I want to go with what I have at my disposal? Or how can I get what I need? How do I approach the person that has it? Or how do I approach the situation in order to get it? So I think I do see all of this actually in my advantage, because that opened a different way of thinking, perceiving, and approaching situations. And forced me to be creative, basically. So this way, for me, how I'm built is something natural. It is not, I need to think about it and bring it from my
it's
tool
core. It's core.
Yes. Yeah. And I met with the other Romanian friends over the weekend, and we were discussing about this. And you see that in different nationalities, that for them, the life was more abundant, for example. So all the resources were there. It's beautiful, but in the same time, I think that's a disadvantage for them, because then you're not obliged, or you're not forced to
like
think.
Innately wired. Yep.
So I do see all of that as an advantage, actually.
Interesting. So just for 2 seconds. So I grew up in chaos. So that's why it's core for me to create order and structure.
I do need structure as well. Otherwise I agree with that. With the structure, you can't build, and then you have the structure and limited resources, and then you are able to grow. Or sometimes I do feel you just need to jump and see what happens, but then you need to stop, take a step back, and create the structure, because otherwise you can't really grow.
Yeah, that's true. So I'll just make one quick comment on to number 4 from Deloitte, and then maybe you can have a quick look at what you want to pick out from the HubSpot list.
Yeah, let's just speak 2, because I don't think we have time for everything.
So just quickly on number 4 from Deloitte about emerging tech, I think this one is like so spot on. I mean, look at the explosion that happened this year with AI. But
this one was
this one was like, they're spot on with this one. It's like, AI has been around for a while, but it seems like it just hit the tipping point and became the critical mass. And it's really interesting. It's really interesting. Like I've been saying that, observing the US market from afar, right? From here, all the way over here. I've seen so much chat and buzz and like all the hype around AI everything. And it's like the cool, sexy, shiny bubble right now. And everybody wants to talk about that. And it's great. And I also went to a social enterprise conference recently, and that session was standing room only. So I can see that there's that it's interesting, it's cool, it's the new thing, and all of that. However, what's alarming to me is the cost of it. What I mean is the e-waste concerns are pretty substantial. The e-waste and just the water consumption alone. And you've already mentioned the SDGs and such, and there's articles, there's plenty of highly reputable scientists and organizations and whatnot talking about the water problems that we're looking at over the next decade and beyond. So anyway, it's interesting to see that, yes, AI, I'll admit, there's amazing functionality and things that it can do. It's I just did a really pretty sophisticated, the spreadsheet task that would have taken me 1,000,000 hours, and it happened in 5 minutes. So I understand what it is, but I hope that people will become more aware of what the cost of it is, and that's somehow factored in. I'm not sure how that would happen, but that's my concern about it.
I think people talk about it because it's a hot topic, as you said, it's trending. However, they don't really know what they're talking about. So they don't take the time to properly educate themselves how to use it. You have the ethical issues, you have there are a lot of issues here. And a lot of companies' cost is still high at this point. So not everyone has access to everything. You do have free ones, but I'm talking like to really properly implement it at a company level, not for you to create an Excel in all your services and things like that. The cost can be quite high depending on how you want to go. And I'm talking this because we just signed a partnership with a company implementing this. So depending on the budget, you can do more or less. But I think the core is actually people are not really sure how to use it. And they are not really 100. I think they're using 1% of how much they can get out of it. And this is because they are not educated. And there are not enough companies really educating them because the technology is still so young. So we are in that process of still discovering how can I use it? How can I improve my processes with it? How can I actually turn my business in a more ethical and sustainable business with it? And of course, you're going to have the downside.
But even that is so interesting because, I was like shocked that even at that conference, how few people were aware. Like there's a lot of articles out there. Off the top of my head, there's one from earth.org. So we'll include the link to that. But just to be able to see, because even Microsoft and Google have come out and shared their data about the water consumption and what's going on and how they're now trying to reuse the water and whatnot, because it is a massive drag on the system or a cost on the system, the infrastructure, and the e-waste problem is already a major problem. So I think it's good I think you're right. I think a lot of, most small businesses haven't the slightest idea. I feel like it's a different version of Twitter. Like when Twitter was out, like, what? They don't even know, whatever. It's like tweet. Like I remember I used to say to clients and my people like, Twitter, and they'd say, oh, what tweet, haha, like they didn't get it, right? And so I feel like this is, tweet on, on steroids kind of a thing. But still, so a lack of awareness about what it is and how it can be utilized or harnessed, but then also the ability or just awareness of how to moderate it, or to just simply know, are you going to, it's like the carbon offsetting bit. What are you going to do? So if you're going to utilize this, at least be aware that it's like, I think that the what's the word I want to say? Conversion is like for every 5, there's an article I could link to with this, but for every 5 begins with a P. I was going to say prompts. For every 5 prompts, like for example, in a chat GPT, for every 5 prompts, it's like 1 liter of water that it takes.
Oh gosh.
Right. So just to be able to know when you're doing this, okay, so now for me doing my little project, it just took, I only know gallons, like 5 gallons of water. Okay. So what am I going to do now to try to offset that? To compensate for that. So that's my bit about that. But for sure, Deloitte knocked it out of the park with that one, emerging tech, and
they did.
It's the AI piece. So anyway, so how about HubSpot? Any that you want to chat about with HubSpot?
I see here align marketing and sales teams.
Yep. That was our episode 6.
That. Yeah.
Episode 6. Did I miss that one up? Oh, no, 4 was the creativity. 6 was marketing and sales. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
But it's something that I keep on saying, and marketing is not sales, sales is not marketing. They do work together. I actually wrote an article that's a love affair between them, and one is serving the other one. But the reality is, you see the sales team acts like they are the king, and the marketing team are the slaves that they need to support them. And I apologize, but I have to just say it's such a big bullshit. Because one can't really properly work without the other, and the other way around.
Yep, they're symbiotic, really.
They are, and one is not excluding the other, and they are not the same. So definitely, maybe now it's time for people to realize they are not silos. They need to work together, and just listen to episode 6.
Episode 6.
We discussed 1 hour about that.
Yep. Yep.
So how about you
So
choose another one? Or do you want
yeah.
to?
So no, I have a different one. So the social media being used for customer service,
Mm,
that stood out to me. And that one for me feels like, wow, that's a trend. That for me
yeah.
feels like that should be obvious, especially for bigger brands. Um, yeah, because, and I feel like most of us as consumers know, and if you don't already, this is a great tip. If you ever have trouble with anything, before you even try to call customer service, check them out on social, because generally they're going to respond quicker on social than
Yeah.
if you're waiting in a phone tree. So it's just how it is
Especially
now.
with airlines. I did
Yeah,
it.
for sure. Yeah, airlines, absolutely.
Airlines where you
But
can't find a help desk or customer
yeah,
service number.
exactly. You're just waiting, and you have to press this, and you're stuck in the phone tree, and yeah, that's yeah. So anyway, and then the suggestion or the resource I have for that, there's a company I know that's doing phenomenal in this arena, called B Squared Media, and they do customer care through social media, like really phenomenal, and so keeping in line with this idea of trends and such, I know they also publish, I believe it's an annual kind of report, so to speak, on the state of customer care. So I think that just came out, or it's coming out soon. So let me see if I can get that and add that
Oh,
link,
definitely,
because
that's
it's lots of
interesting.
great data, and a really well-run company that's working with brands around the world. A lot of big companies, but at their core, they also love small business too. So some really phenomenal resources. So the customer service one stood out to me. How about you? Any other?
Oh, I think the other one are they are very in line with what we discussed, like prioritizing social responsibility. I think that goes quite hand in hand with the SDGs as well. The
Mm-hmm.
short videos, this
Yep.
is here for a long time, so I don't really
Mm-hmm.
see it new.
Mm-hmm.
And the SEO again,
So
I think
the
this is
SEO one,
for
go ahead,
forever.
sorry. Yeah, it
SEO,
shouldn't be a trend per se.
no.
I think I think the trend with SEO, I think it kind of well, at least as far as what I have seen, is there are new opportunities that have opened up through GA4.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. I know that there are some differences in terms of how it's utilized in the US market versus the European market because of GDPR and all of that. However, there's a US company based in Chicago called Orbit Media, and they publish a tremendous amount of like really high quality long form content. And there's one specifically that I think is an updated annual report about specifically around SEO and blogging, and yeah, just blogs in general for bloggers or company blogs, etc. In which ones, in like what the trend is in terms of the format, the length, etc., etc.
Mhm.
That's really interesting and is packed with data points. So I can also include that link as well. It's really interesting just to be able to see, again, through the lens of SEO and what the trend is, what is actually working in terms of content creation with blogs. So I can add that
So,
one.
well, the point of this is these are our opinions, but what the
Yep.
listeners are going to get actually, it's a list of a lot of resources that you can utilize and just
Mm-hmm.
learn from them.
Yep.
Um, and please, we need 4 more listeners to reach
Yeah.
our.
Yeah. Yeah. Sure.
um,
Yeah.
but
But
I'm curious actually to because I'm pretty sure we do need to actually start understanding our audience. So probably soon we're gonna launch a short survey. Please
yep.
do fill it in, guys, and help us help you uh, provide better content. But I'm curious to see where are you in your business actually, and what of these trends you start implementing or you're considering, or what's your opinion about them? Because
Mm-hmm.
us as the um, I don't know if you listened to the previous episode. So I'm a marketer. I'm not gonna say Jillian is a marketer, but a business consultant. But
I'm a
we
recovering marketeer.
a recovering marketer. But what is interesting for us is to really see these are predictions done by big companies. But what I'm really interested in, I know Jillian because I know her, is how do you utilize them? Do you actually read them? Do
Yeah.
you implement them? Or are you aware of them? Or how do you approach it? Do you just look at your data and apply them? Me personally, I'm very curious. So I would love to hear from you in the comments, or send us an email or a DM or whatever works for you. Both of us, we are very responsive and easy to reach. But I'm more interested in actually you and how you approach these trends. Are you actually looking at them at the beginning of the year or end of the year? Are you trying to integrate them in your strategy, or you're just not interested in them?
Yeah. So we'll leave you with that thought to ponder.
And don't forget to share with us.
And don't forget to share. So that's a wrap on episode, what is it, 14?
14. Wow.
14. All right.
Thank you all for listening. Till next time.
Until next time. Cheers.
Bye.